I'm just getting the live stream up and running, pulling up the second screen on a laptop alongside the simulator so I can see the conversations going on while we are looking through this procedure for starting the aircraft. So this is going to be good fun this evening. We are on the ground at Stansted Airport with the Boeing 777 from PMDG, the Boeing 777-200ER that came out last week. So in between my first look at the Boeing 777 and this evening, I've flown for other completely different aeroplanes that were brand new to me, so I'm kind of pushing the limits of how much I can take on board at the moment. So mistakes may be made along the way, but they're always insightful and instructful when mistakes are made. So we'll see how we get on. Hopefully it'll go quite smoothly. Okay, so first things first, I am going to be following a written procedure to start the aeroplane up. So I'm going to go and show you a little bit about that now. If you go and look at Ko-fi.com, and I've put links in the video to these, this is the startup procedure I will be following, which you can download a copy of for yourself. Lots of other people already have. And also, if you want to really delve into some of the functionality of the flight management computer, I've written a quick reference guide for it as well. So for those who've never seen one of these procedures that I write up, if we go and have a look at the startup procedure for the 777, if we go and scroll through it, it's got some basic instructions of how to use the views in the simulator if you're not familiar with them. It goes through, making sure you've got your controls set up, get the walk around mode out of the way because Flight Simulator 2024, but you wouldn't walk around when you spawn in. Then we got the configuring the aircraft from cold and dark within the simulator. So the PMDG aircraft by default, when you first install them, already have the engine running, but you can control that. I'll show you that in a moment before we actually get going with the flight management computer, of how you can influence that. And then we go into pre-flight, so you can see all the way through all the steps of getting the airplanes ready. I'm telling you what keys to press to go to different views, where to look on the instrument panels, and what to press, what direction switches should go, how to roll the mouse to configure knobs and selectors, and then in the FMC, step by step, all the buttons to press all the way through configuring the FMC. So both doing it for a manually programmed flight plan and using the Simbrief integration. So I do it both ways in the instructions, and then obviously through the rest of it, so getting the engines up and running, getting ready for taxi, and then going out to the runway, and so on and so forth. So it walks you through everything you'll need to learn about how to do. The other document, which I thought I'd scrolled to the top of before we started, is the FMC quick reference. So this goes through how to do all sorts of things in the FMC, so you can see a brief list of them here. So obviously it goes back through how to program at the start of a flight, but also the various different autopilot modes, how to add new waypoints, how to add custom waypoints. So those will be the ones that are at a bearing and a distance from existing waypoints. How to remove waypoints from the legs page, how to do direct twos, how to do a beam waypoints, perform the gross flight plan check, how to draw vectors and range rings on the nav display. We'll do that tonight if we remember, just to have a bit of fun. And how to fly at an offset to your planned course. So if you were doing it like a transatlantic route, for example, you might want to do that. If you know you've got a chance for a collision or something, you could go 10 miles to the west or the east or something. Or north or south, I should say. Flying an intercept course. So there's lots and lots in here, and it goes through in each case, exactly what to press to make things happen, and walks through it in quite some detail. So those are the guides. I'll be following this startup procedure to get the airplane up and running. I've got it on the screen alongside the simulator, but first and foremost, we're going to use Simbrief integration to make our life easy tonight. And therefore we're going to use Simbrief to generate a flight plan. So I thought rather than start with everything ready, I'd actually show you me do it. So we're going to start off by filling in the form on Simbrief, for a new flight. So the airline, we're going to use the virtual flight, which is the usual airline I made up years ago. And my flight number will be 073. And we're going to depart from Stansted. The ICAO code for Stansted is EGSS. And we're going to go to Orly in France, just for a bit of fun. So if we don't know the code, we can click on the magnifying glass in Simbrief, and if we type in Orly, it should come up. There it is in Paris. Select it. And then we need to choose the aircraft type. So the 777-200 is the B772. So if we scroll down, keep going, there it is, look, the B777-200ER. So that's the one that PMDG have made. And we've got this lovely, interesting flight plan. I always like it when it's a little bit out of the ordinary. We can actually scroll down and you can see the basic routing there. So we've got a SID and a star in play, and we can generate the flight. Okay, so that's made us an operational flight plan in Simbrief, and then we can use this later on in the aeroplane to configure everything. Okay, so back with the aeroplane. Let's go and start working through that flight plan. So if we press backspace, the only thing I've done before starting the video was connected the stairs to the aeroplane. So they are in, if we go in here to show you, in the tablet, if you go into ground operations and you look at door management, this is where you can open and close your doors. If you look in ground service vehicles, because the stairs are actually a vehicle, yeah, they can be driven around. We can release those stairs if we wanted to now, and we could go and close that door, just so we don't forget later on, because it's not actually part of the procedure, although there are some checks in there to say, you know, go and check the doors and cones and all the rest of it. So if we look at this, it should be closing. Let's have a look. Is it closing from the outside? So let's click disarm. There we go. Okay, so first things first, then we're going to press Shift and 6 to go overhead in the aeroplane, and we're going to go and turn the batteries on. And then we're going to come back down to the tablet, so press Shift and 9, and we're going to go to the ground operations app, and we're going to do a ground power request. So we look at ground connections, and we go to ground power, and we request it. And it now says release, which means it is connected. And if you look down here, I'll have to spin the camera around a little bit. It's quite difficult to see. Down here, there's a little cable from this stand-up unit that goes into the underneath of the aircraft, and that's providing us ground power to the airplane. Can I just check the volume levels before we go too much further? I'm a little bit quiet, aren't I? Let's just check. I bet Windows has done its usual trick. Input microphone, yes it has. Let's see, what is that better now? No. Open sound settings, input microphone. Interesting. I think it's working anyway. Windows is being a so-and-so. So we've got the aeroplane up and running, and it's sitting right in front of us. It's sitting on the battery at the moment, so let's go and we've got ground power connected to the airplane. So we go back overhead, Shift 6, and we can then go to the power switches here. So you've got primary and secondary external power. So we'll turn on the primary external power and the secondary external power, and then we can turn on the APU as well. So the APU, as I've described many times before with different aeroplanes, is a small gas turbine in the tail of the aeroplane. If we go and look outside, you'll actually see there's this vent opening up, and then you'll see the gas turbine will start sucking air in, and you'll see hot air pouring out. There it goes, out of the exhaust. It takes a few seconds for it to get up and running properly, so we're not in a huge hurry. Next thing we're going to look at is ADIRU, which is the, and then let me get this right, the Air Data Inertial Reference Unit. So that's the system of gyros that are measured very, very accurately by the aeroplane. It was invented for Apollo, by the way, I think. They measure accelerations in any direction, so that's what informs the flight system very, very accurately, how the aeroplane is moving and which way up it is and so on and so forth. Okay, we can go and turn the window heats on, and then we can go to the IFE passenger seats and the cabin utility power, and we can go and arm the emergency lights and cover the switch. We can go and arm the passenger oxygen system, and then we're down into programming the flight. But as you will see, the cockpit isn't up and running yet. But you'll notice that the FMC is already up and running, so regardless, this is a bit of a cheat. You can still go into some of the menus before the system's actually up and running properly. So if you go into PMDG, for example, this is where you can set your load state of the aeroplane. So what you would do, if you want to change the startup state, by default, I don't think it's got anything, we've just got power by the way. You'll start to see systems booting up in a moment. Here they come. So it simulates the accurate boot up times. It's good, isn't it? Here it all comes, look. Right, so as I said, you can actually change the startup state. So you click on the soft key next to it, and you can choose from 3 pages worth of options what you want, and we've got cold and dark is what we typically want. You can immediately choose, because obviously that won't take effect until you start the airplane again. So you can load a state immediately. We're not going to, because we've already been meddling with the aeroplane, but you get the idea. So if we return to the menu, if you get lost from anywhere within here, just press menu and it brings you back to here. So then we can go into the FMC and we can start working through programming the aeroplane. Okay, so we are going to do the Simbrief integration, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is actually not in the FMC. We're going to go over to the tablet. And we're going to go back to the home page. And we're going to go into the EFB app. And we're going to request data from Simbrief. So there's our operational flight plan. Okay. And it takes us from Stansted to Orly. And you can see it there drawn onto the map. We're going to go then over to the weight and balance app. So if we come back out of here and go into weight and balance, we can then import the weight and balance from Simbrief. And that's all we have to do in here, I think. So then we come back out of here and we can go into the performance tool app. And for takeoff, we can import the airport from the operational flight plan. So it's got EGSS. Now, it hasn't picked up the runway, so let's go and have a look at our flight plan. Runway 04. So there we go. And that informs basically the last bits of data for this to do some calculations. So we can either then import from the aircraft the configuration from the OFP or from the aircraft. So let's go from the aircraft. Now, this is an interesting point actually. When we did the weight and balance, do we have to... Yeah, we can do quick loading, I guess. Which should be instant. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but anyway, we'll go into it was the performance calculator, wasn't it? The performance tool. So we've got the airport data, we've got the aircraft data, and we can then import the weather, and then based on that we can calculate, and it calculates all of our numbers to get the airplane ready for flight, including the V speeds. And so you've got V1 is your decision speed, VR is your rotate speed, V2 is your minimum speed to actually take off, even if you're going to come straight back in again. Okay, So, having done the basics in there, we're going to go back over with Shift and 3 to the FMC. So it's saying enter inertial position. So we'll clear out of here, go to pause in it, go to next page, pick up a GPS location, go previous page and drop it into set inertial position. Okay, then we're going to populate the reference airport. So we're at Stansted. So Echo Golf Sierra Sierra is the ICAO code for Stansted. We don't have to put the gate in. So you sometimes see boxes for mandatory fields and hyphens for optional fields. Okay, so we can go through and program the route, but except we're not going to because we've got Simbrief integration in play. So we're going to say route request, and it shows us the Simbrief route ETSS to LFPO. So we select it, and then we just say select route, and it's requesting it. You have to sit and wait here for a few moments. So the route request has been sent. Okay, and you can see some messages have popped up. We're going to clear those messages out, and then we're going to load the route. So route 1 uplink loading. So you'll see the data is going to change. Just wait for it for a few seconds. And there it goes. And we can then activate and execute. Okay, so then it's leading through. So if we were to go next page in here, you can now see the routing has appeared inside the FMC, because you've got 3 pages of this now. Look, it's got all of our routing through the airways. If you want to see the proof of that, we've got M84 to Conan, sorry, we're going to Clacton, CLN, then M84 to Conan, UL607 to Ferdy. So there's Clacton, M84 to Conan, UL607 to KOK, then UL607 to Ferdy. Yeah, so that more or less is the same. It's slightly different, isn't it? That's interesting. Anyway, if we go performance initialization next, we can go and do the performance. So 0 fuel weight, we can just press the button next to it and it picks up the number from the aeroplane and drops it in. And then we can accept the performance initialization data, and that gives us the rest of the numbers. We can go through to the thrust limit, and we can go through to takeoff. So in the takeoff, we can go and set the flaps. So to do that, if we go and look, or press, we can either press Shift and Space and use the mouse to come over here. So you can see what's been set here on the numbers. So we need to look at the performance app, don't we? This is the performance app, flaps 5. Okay. So then Shift 3 brings us back over. So we put flaps 5 in. As soon as you've got flaps selected, and you can calculate center of gravity automatically just by pressing it. Notice we can't put the V-speeds in yet. So it's got no numbers there. The reason for that is we haven't done the departure and arrivals. It doesn't know which runway. Therefore it can't figure out, the wind and the direction and the rest of it. So if we go to departure arrivals and we say we're taking off runway 04, and we're doing the Clacton CLN 5 Sierra. So runway 04 for takeoff, CLN 5 Sierra for the standard instrument departure. Execute that. And then if we go into initref now, which is the calculator we were just looking at, flaps are in, and you can see the numbers are in here now for the V-speeds, because it knows about the runway direction, so it can work it out. So we can just select each one to confirm them, and the fonts become bigger, and the arrow alongside each one disappears. And we've done that part of it. We haven't done the departure and arrival fully yet, though. We've only done the departure. So if we come back to index on this page and go back to arrival, you can do all of these various bits and pieces in any order you like. The major buttons take you to the various pages. So how is this planning to come into Orly? Runway 02 on the Moppy 9 Echo. So ILS02 and next page, Moppy 9 Echo, there it is, and execute that. And if we go and look in legs now, we can see if there's any discontinuities along the way. So we're just going to step through, and there is one, look. So if we go and load this in, we can see why there might be. So import from Simbrief, EGSS to LFPO, and we have to put the approach in, so ILS for runway 02. Now there is some transitions here. What did the route look like? Moppy. No, I don't think. That's interesting. Why has it not got a final option? Unless I'm being incredibly... runway 2, ILS runway 2, final, there it is. So that gives us... That's interesting. Let's just remove that again. Select. ILS runway 2. And there's various transitions, look. So yeah, we've definitely got the right one. But it's dropping out some of the extra routing, which is a shame. Let's see if little nav map. Sometimes Simbrief isn't the best thing in the world. Sometimes Navigraph isn't the best thing in the world at visualizing these things. So we're going to download it into Simbrief. We're going to create the flight plan, not save what we had already. So there's our basic route. So as far as this is concerned, look, it's just going to do this enormous turn at the last moment, which is pretty much what we had on the other side. So then we'll go. It's got the approach there, so let's go show arrivals. ILS 002. And there isn't a VEB. Oh, there is a VEB transition there, look. But that didn't exist unless it was somewhere else on the list. So let's say insert that one. That would be the one to do, wouldn't it? Let's see if we can get Navigraph to agree with it. Obviously just didn't choose the right one, which is what I'm kind of trying to show you here, that Navigraph can be a bit of a so-and-so. So let's look at the writing on these other approaches. Runway 25 has got the VEBEC. It's not going to list it, is it? It's got RNAV doing it, so the VEBEC. So ILS02 with VEB7Y. That one. So we'll use that. We can still use the ILS. There's nothing to say we can't. It's just, yeah, sometimes Navigraph can be an absolute so-and-so. So Bad Hog is saying about the fuel insufficient error. That's because your wind has changed en route, or you've meddled with the wind in the simulator, and therefore the burn rate isn't correct. So yeah, that will be why. We'll find out. Obviously we're sat here with the APU running, remember. We're burning fuel. So if you take ages on the ground, you are going to hit problems with the amount of fuel. Anyway, so we've programmed all of this in, yeah? So we need to go and close that discontinuity. So pull that up and execute it. Go next page, next page. We've got some vectors in here, which is absolutely fine. So this is the final run into the airport. The reason we've got vectors, if you look at this, there's a gap between here. So we leave PO621 before we get to IP002. So if we go next page, next page, next page, next page. vectors. D017C it's saying on here. So where would that be on the grand scheme of things? Is this going through Pushback previous? Yeah, there's Pushback, CF02. No, it's going a different route, look. Okay, we're going to trust the aeroplane at this point. Because, like I said, this didn't make sense, did it? Looking at... So, little nav map's got a slightly different route again, look. So it's going via CTL. Isn't that fascinating how each of these different systems has got a different version? Now, we can see what it's trying to do by putting the navigation display into plan mode. So if we then go and increase the range, say, to 40 miles, and we'll just go step, step, step on here. Okay, let's go through that again. Pushback. And it's going straight down now. That's mad, isn't it? So it's got a completely different understanding in the FMC of what that approach looks like. So let's go and have another look and see what we've chosen. So index, arrival, ILS02, and the MOPI 9 Echo. Arrival, MOPI 9 Echo with the Mopil transition. Interesting. Let's reset it. ILS02 MOPI with the Mopil. It hasn't got it. Or is it the mole? But then we kind of figured out a moment ago that this didn't match what we had in... Well, this is turning into a bit of a puzzle, isn't it? Which one's this? So that's the Mole 7. And then you've got the VEB7Y. VEB7Y. So at least we can make it look fairly similar. Execute. So we will go with that looking the same, and we've got this one looking the same as well, haven't we? So if we insert that one, then at least they all agree with each other. We'll probably do all of this and then ATC will tell us to use a different procedure. But anyway, I think it's fascinating to look at the difference between the systems, because this is where so many people get tripped up. So it's just that I think the thing to take away is it's not a hard and fast rule that that everything's going to match, and you're looking for between 3 different systems. You've got integration issues going on, and they might all have slightly different data. I have tried to make sure that my AIRAC is the same across the board. That might be a little bit about what's going on. Okay, so we'll put this back on map mode on the navigation display. So you can see while we were busy meddling around with the flight plan, the navigation display is, the ADIRU is all configured and working properly, so that's all good. So we've gone through the legs page, we've already done the discontinuities. Let's go and look at the mode control panel. So Shift and 1. We're going to go and set the takeoff direction, which is going to be 42 degrees. And we're going to go and set the initial target airspeed. So this comes into play with these numbers. So we're looking at V2. We want about 156 minimum. So you're looking for the V2 speed, the minimum flying speed, plus 20 knots or so. So 156 should be, so if we can go higher than that though, we could say 200. But just in terms of minimums, in terms of, make sure your target airspeed is no less than. But you can also go looking at the numbers down here, look. I'll put that on rejected takeoff while I'm here. The flap limit. So flaps 1 limit, or we're going to take off, say, with 5 degrees flaps, remember? So it can't be any higher than 235, but it shouldn't be any lower than about 155, 160 because of the V2 speed. Okay, so we can, with heading mode, this is a trick that I've shown several times in the past, actually. Oh, it's not going to let us do it today. That's interesting. If we select that, yeah, we can go, because we've got discontinuity. Oh, I haven't put the flight directors on, that's why. You can't influence these buttons unless the flight directors are on, because the flight director is what tells the airplane what to do. So you commanding a particular mode, which will show up here, won't happen unless the flight directors are on. So if we go, here we go, heading hold, and it will show heading hold on the autopilot configuration. We can also say LNAV at the same time, and it will drop heading hold as soon as it figures out it's close enough to the route to use it. Same goes for vertical speed. We can set vertical speed. So we could say climb out at 2,000 feet a minute or 2,500 feet a minute. But we can also set VNAV. So it will go to the target altitude. So I'm going to leave it on 10,000 because ATC will probably clear us only to a certain height anyway. So it will use vertical speed. As soon as it figures out it's anywhere near the profile, it will go to VNAV and drop vertical speed. But it's just to show you that you can have both. Okay, so we'll go and calibrate the altimeters with the comma key, which goes and gets us to QNH really quickly. We've already set the auto brake to rejected takeoff. The transponder. Okay, so we're going to go talk to ATC now and get our clearance. So we need to go over to... There's a nice trick in SayIntentions. If you click on the frequency, it shows you the local airport. If you click on the frequency, it tunes the comm radio for you, which saves you a lot of time. So we want the clearance frequency. So we're on the clearance now. Stansted clearance, virtual 073, requesting clearance to Edinburgh as filed. Oh, it's not Edinburgh, is it? We're going to Orly. Apologies, requesting clearance to Orly as filed. I told you we'd make mistakes.
Clearance on request, stand by.
He's probably busy laughing at us in the
Virtual 073, information Charlie is current. Clear to Paris Orly via the CLN to E departure runway 22. Initial climb to 4,000 feet. Departure on 120.625. Squawk 1456.
Has he just given us a different clearance?
And we had to change your departure runway to 22.
Yeah, I thought that sounded different. So we're now doing runway 22 and the Clacton to Echo departure. So we need to read that back and then we'll go do it.
Stansted clearance, jet to Channel 14 Lima Mike.
I'm just waiting on
with information Juliet on board. Request IFR to Lyon, please.
I'll grab that clearance. Give me just a minute.
What do you mean when you tell me radar service terminate? Why? Channel 14 Lima Mike.
Clear to Paris Orly via the Clacton to Echo departure runway 22, initial climb 4,000 feet, departure 120.625, squawk 1456, virtual 073.
Virtual 073, read back correct. Contact ground on 121.73.
Contact ground 121.73, virtual 073, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go and put all this into the airplane now. So we want to go and put the transponder to 1456 and then we'll go and reprogram the route again. So this is the reality of the real world, that the weather doesn't stay the same as Simbrief said it would be. So the routing has changed. So let's go and have a quick look. So squawk 1456, we'll do that first. So transponders are over here and we want 1, 4, 5, 6. We're also going to go and put this on standby for the moment. Okay, and then we're going to go and reprogram that route. So all we need to do is go into departure arrivals, and we're going to go, what did they tell us? Runway 22 and Clacton to Echo. So runway 22, CLN to Echo. And execute the change. Go and look in legs to see if that's introduced a discontinuity at all. It shouldn't have, because it was, but they're both going to Clacton as the kind of the intersection before it joins an airway. So that's all good. And it's, but look, because we changed runways, the takeoff speeds have been deleted. So we need to go back to init refs. It's recalculated them, so we just need to push them back in. Okay. And we're good to go again. So should we go and reflect that in Navigraph as well? So remove, select runway 22. Yeah, it's saying that the departure didn't match, which is what we've just seen. So we want Clacton to Echo, which is fine. So we're just doing that instead of that. We could do the same in Little Nav Map just to complete the story for people that use Little Nav Map. So show departures, go for SID for Clacton to Echo, and insert that in, and it's just going to do the same there. Look, it's taking off that way, going out to Clacton. So we covered quite a lot of bits and pieces here, haven't we? So we've got our clearance, we've done the transponder, we've set up the mode control panel, we're ready to push back and start. So we want to go and switch over to ground now, which they told us the frequency for, so we're going to change frequency and ask ground for pushback and start. Stansted ground, virtual 073, requesting pushback and start.
Virtual 073, pushback and start approved, face northwest.
Pushback and start approved, face northwest, virtual 073. So we'll press Alt and P, which will bring the truck out. So we need to face that way, because that's the way the runway is. So do we get pushback controls in the 777? It'll be in ground operations, won't it, if it's going to ground service vehicles. Oh, we need to go and release the ground power before we start getting pushed. That's a good point. The APU is up and running now, so that's not an issue. And bus transfer is automatic in the 777. So I don't think we get to control the pushback. You can via the FMC actually. It's in the PMDG menu. Oh, sorry, no, in the FS Actions menu, I think. So let's come off the parking brake. To remove the parking brake in the Boeings, you have to hold the toe brakes on, and then it lets go. Oh, did we get rid of the chocks? That would also hold it up. Because I've gone off script there, looking at the various bits. Let's go look at ground connections. Yeah, remove the chocks. And we'll suddenly start moving. There we go. I had to toggle the parking brake for it to realise then that the chocks had actually gone. Yeah, so you're not going to go anywhere if you've still got chocks on the wheels, and you're going to cause a bit of an accident if you pull away with the ground power still connected. You'll be dragging the cart across the tarmac with you. Which is, I've got it all in the document, I'm just not following my own instructions now, which is super helpful. Okay, so it's gone the right way and the truck stopped early, so we'll put the parking brake on. And back in the aeroplane we can go start our engines. So shift and 6, we're going to prepare for engine start. So the no smoking signs come on. I'm just trying to remember where they are. Here they go. We'll put them on auto. We'll put the seat belts on auto. Beacon light goes to on. You always have the beacon light on if you're about to start the engines. We're going to put the fuel pumps on. So there's the hydraulics. I'm trying to remember where everything is now. Fuel pumps, here we go. I don't think we've got anything in the centre tanks It's only a short flight, so I wouldn't have expected there to be. And you'd have the lights on them if there was. Ground power. We've released that. Yeah, this is the bit of the procedure that I didn't follow. And the wheel chocks. Primary flight controls, we've done that bit. So start engine number 2. This is the straightforward bit. So the engine start switches are up here. The APU needs to be on, obviously. So it's all on automatic on the 777. You don't have to go and do it yourself. So you just say start engine number 2. And then when we look down in the cockpit, you'll see it's spinning up. So the compressed air from the APU is being used to spin up the engine. When it gets to 20%, I think it is. I'm just looking at my notes. Actually, you don't have to worry. On the 777, you can immediately advance the fuel control for the engine, and it does it automatically.
Ground, this is Ryanair Golf Mike India Charlie Kilo. Request IFR clearance to Belfast.
Has he just requested that on
Clear
the ground?
to Belfast ADIRU via the UTAV 1 Romeo departure.
So you'll see the start switch go back to normal.
Departure runway is going to be 22. This will climb altitude 4,000 feet and departures on 132.05.
There we go.
Score
Then we can start engine number 1.
71. Charlie Kilo.
Same deal. You can advance the switch automatically.
Charlie Kilo, read back
or
correct.
straight away, I mean. In the 737, you used to have to wait for the engines to get to a certain speed before you introduce fuel. But that introduction is automatic now, so this is more like an arming switch than an actual, injection, an ignition switch. There we go, look, it's just ignited. So the N1, the turbofan speed is coming up now. So after engine start, we can go and turn the APU off. So we're just waiting now. So if we go and look overhead, that switch will go back to norm. As soon as it does so, we can roll the APU to the left. There we go. APU comes off. And then we can do the hydraulics. So if we look down here, we're going to go and turn each of these on. Oh, I turned the wipers on then by accident. We can turn each of these to auto. That's that done. And we can prepare to taxi. So taxi light's down here, or up here if we look from over here. There's the taxi light. And we're going to go and talk to... Now, yeah, this is it. This is the point of contention. We could put TA on there. We're going to wait until we get to the runway and do the final bits and pieces. We're also, while we're sat here, before we get anywhere near the runway, we're going to go to the checklist button. Now, the takeoff configuration checks in the aeroplane, when you get to the runway, will set a warning off if you haven't done this. So what we're going to do, if you go to the normal menu, you can look at the pre-flight checklist and you can tick off what we've done. So this is like in the real world, one person does it while the other person checks them off and and confirms each item. In our case, we did it all, and now we're coming in and doing it retrospectively just to see have we covered everything. So before start, we didn't do the flight deck door, but we'll pretend we did. We did the MCP, we did the takeoff speeds, we did the pre-flight, we've done the trim, takeoff and taxi briefing, which is between the pilot and the co-pilot, I guess, and talking to ATC. Beacon light is on. Before taxi, we don't need anti-ice. We've got the auto brake configured. We've checked the flight controls. The ground equipment has been cleared away from the aeroplane. And then before takeoff checklist is just flaps 5 look. So we've done all of the initial checklists, so that won't give us a warning for not having done them. Okay, so we're going to go and request taxi clearance from
London
ground.
Stansted ground. Skyways 4981. Request push and stop.
Skyways 4981. Push and start approved. Face northwest.
So let's pull up the
Skyways
airport
4981.
diagram.
Push and start approved. Face northwest.
We know we're going to runway 22. So let's talk to ground. Stansted ground virtual 073 requesting taxi to runway 22.
Virtual 073. Taxi to runway 22 via Alpha East Juliet Charlie Sierra.
Interesting. Taxi runway 22 via Alpha East, Juliet, Charlie, Sierra, virtual 073. So, Alpha, and there's Sierra. Juliet. Interesting. So, yeah, Juliet is here. So, Alpha, Juliet, Charlie, Sierra. So they want us to go the long way round. Okay, we just need to look out then and get on our way. Oh, we need to, good point, we need to release the parking brake. Which you do by holding the toe brakes on. And the head tracking is playing up. Super useful when it does that. I may pull the plug on the head tracking and plug it back in. Yeah, it's having an absolute mare. Bear with me for a moment. I've got to remember which switch is which now to get the head tracking to work. I think it's this one. Yeah, it is. And it's just woken back up and it's behaving now. Yep. So if in doubt, if you've got a Tobii eye tracker and it starts to go crazy, just unplug it and plug it back in again. So this is the Juliet taxiway. So we have to go the long way around this next bit. The signage should be correct actually, so I'll show you on the map in a moment where we are. Oops, wrong one. So we're just going down towards Romeo and Sierra. The Romeo is the first one, Sierra is the second one on the left. There's a huge step in the ground, isn't there? I've just noticed that. Hopefully the aeroplane won't damage itself. It's a bit of a glitch in the scenery, isn't there? So here's the Sierra. Yeah, it is on the signage, look.
Virtual 073. Contact tower on 123.805. Take care.
Contacting ground 123.805, virtual 073. I'll wait till we get to the holding point. Look at that step. I'm going to take it very gently. And there's the back. Oh well, he's just had a bit of an accident. I've got multiplayer on, by the way, so we could have Monty Python's Flying Circus happen during the flight for all we know. You never quite know what you're going to get, do you? Should I go and turn the multiplayer off? Stansted Tower, virtual 073, holding short runway 22 for departure on the Clacton 2 Echo. Standard instrument departure. Did they hear us? One, 2, 3, decimal 805. Let's just check the frequency. Tower 123 decimal 805. Stansted Tower, com check please. Virtual 073.
Tower.
They are coming through. There's people landing in the opposite direction. Wonderful. We've been given specific instruction to go this way, and now we've got traffic coming the other way. Should we wait for them and be nice? Is it a human or is it a computer? I think it's the computer. It's not a human. Okay. So I'm just going to go and ignore them. Although it is nice to watch an aeroplane come in sometimes, isn't it? Oh, he's done a go around. Stansted Tower, virtual 073, holding short runway 22 for the Clacton 2 Echo departure as filed. Okay, are they not going to speak to us today? We need to turn the heading bug round, by the way. Stansted Tower, virtual 073, holding short runway 22.
Virtual 073, runway 22, winds 32, 5 at 3, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, copy the weather, virtual 073.
Contact runway 121.73, Shannon 715.
The alarm then was because I'd forgotten that if you sit still on the parking brake, it locks the brakes on. You have to use the toe brakes to release them. So I got caught by it yet again. Okay, so we're not going to take off immediately. We've got a few last minute things to do. So we'll just line up. Make sure the flaps are in the right place. 5 degrees flaps. The landing lights go to on. The strobe lights go to on. Transponder, I'm going to turn head tracking off to do this, otherwise I'll be wavering around like a nodding donkey. Goes to TA only for takeoff. And if we wish to, we can switch on the TCAS here. So if you press TFC, yeah, it's already on by default. So that will show the TCAS information overlaid on the navigation display. We'll reduce the range down to 10 miles for this first corner, just so we get a nice clear view of what's coming. We've done the checklists. Okay, so turn the parking brake off, unlock the parking brake so it drops using the toe brakes. And now, underneath here, there's a button here which will do toga. There's a click spot underneath the auto throttle arm switches, so let's try it. Yep, it's done toga. It's a hidden option of the aeroplane. So you see auto throttle is armed and on. And we're up, gear up. And we'll engage the autopilot.
Traffic.
Virtual 073. Contact departure on 120.625 star. Python says.
Contacting departure 120.625. Good day. Stansted departure, virtual 073, departing runway 22 on the Clacton to Echo departure.
Virtual 73, Stansted radar, not seeing you on radar. Double check, 4321, ident, again.
What the hell happened to that? Did I miss that
Virtual
earlier on?
73, Stansted radar identified.
Oh, yes.
3 southwest of Stansted at 4,000 feet. QNH 1025. Cleared direct D 114N. Climb flight level 2220.
Yeah, look. Oh no, that's
Ultralight Golf Echo. Squawk 6475 and ident.
Anyway, we need to clear this.
Squawk 6475 and ident. Ultralight Golf Echo.
Climbing flight level 220, virtual 073.
Ultralight Golf Echo is established on the heading to Coventry.
So we are going to select 22,000 feet and go for it, because we've been told to by ATC. So the easiest way of doing that is to do a flight level change. And the aeroplane will go upstairs. So we can retract the flaps now. It won't exceed the flap speed when it's on the auto throttle. And it's only going to go to 250 knots anyway because we're below 10,000 feet. So transition altitude is 6,000 feet. So as we come through 6,000, we'll go and hit the standard button on the barometric, or the baro knob. There we go, look, the flaps have wound in. So then we go standard. Do we have to do the same on the other side? No, it's synchronized. That is an option in the configuration of the aeroplane, whether they are independent or not. I guess the big takeaway, I'm kind of trying to drive at with this, is you've seen we've had to go in all sorts of different directions to do things, to check things. There's no hard and fast way of doing things. That's the takeaway. As long
Virtual 073, climb flight level 230.
Climbing flight level 230, virtual 073. So yeah, as I was saying, the takeaway is as long as you do the major things on, that are expected of you to operate the aeroplane, the strict specific ordering of things isn't set in stone. As long as you're following air laws, if you want to try and fly the aeroplane correctly, and as long as you, like for starting the aeroplane up, it's really not that difficult. You get the power on, you get the APU on, you get the engines up and running, you get the hydraulics on, and then on the electronics side you get a route programmed in, you get the MCP, the master control panel for the autopilot set up, you get the navigation screen how you would like it. So we can extend the range now a little bit, by the way. And you get the autopilot set as you want it. If you're doing things the right way, we can now go to TARA, for example, which means that the autopilot will respond to near misses. I don't remember us being told to change frequencies, but there we go. That may have been part of changing runway, that some of the big airports
Virtual
have different...
073, contact London Control on 135.425.
Contacting London Control 135.425, Virtual 073. London Control, Virtual 073 with you on the Clacton 2 Echo, departure from Stansted, climbing to flight level 230.
Virtual 73, London Control, identified, good morning.
We don't have to have this on the screen, by the way. We can get rid of it, so we can press checklist and it will go away. If you want to do the further checklist items, obviously you can. So you go normal and you can do the after takeoff checklist. So yep, gears up, flaps is up, are up. We got the descent would be the next one. So that gives us a reminder of the things we'll need to do. But yeah, as I was saying, as long as you do things in the right kind of order, and it's up to you then. If you want to embellish your checks with, there's all the functionality is in these big complicated airliners to do things like fire checks and power checks and all kinds of things, and you can go and do all of that and it will all work. There's some things I don't think they've done. Have they got the breakers? No, the breakers don't work, look. Whereas some of the big aeroplanes in the sim, things like the MD-80, you can have all sorts of fun and games with simulating failures. But not in here too much. So let's go and have a look. Can we go to the EFB page and pull up? Can this track our position? Lock location now. Zoom in. Oh, I think it keeps us centered. Yeah, there we go. So you can see it flying along. So in terms of knowing about the running out of fuel, if you look on the data for the route, if you go to route data, you'll see the burn down of the fuel throughout the route. And I'm probably going to find I've got way more fuel than I'll ever need. I'm going to land with 13 tons of fuel, which makes me wonder that I didn't quite understand what we were doing on the load page when we were getting the airplane ready for flight. Was it weight and balance? Yeah, we imported it from Simbrief. I'm not sure I applied it to the airplane correctly. That's something for me to go and check. So coming out towards Clacton, as again, this did have a constraint, but we were ordered to go to 23,000 feet. Should we ask if we can go higher now? They didn't tell us any higher, did they? No, they just told us 230. London Control, Virtual 073, requesting higher.
Virtual 073, climb flight level 290.
Climbing flight level 290, Virtual 073. So we'll do a flight level change to get that. Now, because we are not using VNAV, the speeds are wrong. So I'd completely missed that. If you go VNAV, it will still do it, but watch the climb rate.
Requesting IFR clearance to London City
It's sorting it out, but it's favouring getting the speed up. So this is an instructive point. VNAV will control the airspeed. As soon as we went to do a flight level change earlier, we had selected speed. And I had left it at about 230 knots, which is why it managed to climb so steeply, because it didn't have a very fast climb rate. But now we've gone to VNAV, it's going to get to almost cruise speed and then climb, because it will always favour getting to the target airspeed before altitude. And it may not even do that, so select that. So I've targeted 29,000 feet by pressing the knob on it, and now it's going to go. So Thomas is saying in the live stream that he went and bought the deadly and not so deadly airfields from Orbex. They are great, aren't they? They are absolutely terrifying though. Especially if you get inclement weather when you try and visit them. So let's turn the checklist off again. So while we're en route, we can have a bit of a talk about the discontinuities we had between the different navigation systems that were going on. I think part of it was me picking the wrong ones in Navigraph, but also Navigraph can be a so-and-so about not showing you ones that don't match nicely, whereas Little Navmap is not as, or it's more forgiving, and it will let you choose more outlandish routes. So our aeroplane's going to do this magical mystery tour all the way around. We don't need to really worry now until we get to top of descent. We'll get probably switched over to Belgian airspace possibly. You can actually see this quite nicely usually on Navigraph charts, better than Little Navmap. Although Little Navmap, if you just click in space, the information will show you the name of the airspace. So that's London. Then we change to Brussels, look, as we pass over that line there. So when we come to Conan, and you can see the mark there, look. So you've got Paris here, you've got Brussels airspace there. So we're in Brussels airspace until we come back, then we're back into Paris.
Virtual 073, expect the Mopi 9 Echo arrival. Prepare to descend in roughly 20 minutes.
Expecting the Mopi 9 Echo arrival, preparing to descend in roughly 20 minutes. Virtual 073.
Golf Romeo Oscar Golf Echo London Control, roger. Golf Romeo Oscar Golf Echo London Control, Stapleford Airport at your 1 o'clock, 16 miles. Change to advisory frequency approved. Radar services terminated. Squawk VFR.
Frequency change approved and Squawk VFR. Golf Golf Echo.
So Mopil is the beginning of the standard terminal arrival route. So yeah, it's going to take us about 20 minutes then to get to Mopil, which is fine. We'll probably get passed between controllers along the way. Coming up towards the top of climb, let's increase the range then. So we've got 160 miles and we can actually see Mopil out ahead of us, look. We completely forgot to turn off the landing lights on the climb out. So I'm not doing great in terms of procedural stuff, am I? But it's funny, I had an email from a professional pilot, a commercial pilot a while ago, and he said, yeah, that it's a common failing of the sim crowd that they put so much weight on things like turning lights on and off. And he said, no, don't worry about it. He said, obviously there are the standard operating procedures about putting them on at 10,000 feet, you know, as you're descending, or turning them off as you're climbing out. But he said, don't stress too much. He said, you're more worried about the operational capabilities of the aeroplane, you know, whether it's operating as it should be, if it's safe. And that all the systems are working as they should. Okay, so we can go back into here and go back to legs away from the route data. There's also a progress page, which we put on the other screen. If we go to FMC and then progress, and that will show you obviously where you are on the route, destination, and give you the ETAs, which is quite cool. And the fuel burn as well. It's quite a nice screen to leave over there on the second screen. So on here, can we show the weather? There's quite a bit of weather about. I wonder if we're probably a bit too high above it now for it to show up on the radar. Or terrain, I don't think it will do terrain and weather at the same time. Yeah, and again, we're so far above it that it's going to make no difference. So where are we in terms of the sectors? We're about to change, okay, yeah, we're about to cross over, look into Brussels airspace. So we'll get the call in a moment, handing us over.
American Airlines, flight level 27080.
What was our cruise altitude on the original flight plan? 23,000.
500
Okay.
London Control, roger.
But did we have a climb to 290 at Cock?
4721.
Okay.
EasyJet
And Cock is coming, so we climbed early.
Where are you headed?
So we should get a call anytime
Virtual
soon.
073, contact Brussels Control on 125.0.
Contacting Brussels Control 125.0 virtual 073. Let's go cheat and click the frequency. We could do it in the cockpit. Then we announce to Brussels. Brussels Control virtual 073 with you, flight level 290 en route to Orly.
Virtual 73, Brussels Control identified. Cuckoo.
Sounded like Madame Cholet from the Wamples. They do have such a huge range of regional accents on SayIntentions. It's very good. So we're going to be with Brussels Control for a few minutes, aren't we? So I've got enough time to go grab a coffee. My usual trick halfway through the flight. That looks like a real jumbled up map, doesn't it? It does make sense though when you get close to it. Lots of sectors. The problem is you're seeing sectors at all altitudes being rendered. We could simplify it down so you could come in here and you could turn them off. So say none of those, and none of those, and none of those, and none of those, and it gets a bit simpler to see. And within the ICAO ones, you've got the classes of airspace. So you can see the one here is It's colour-coded usually, isn't it? Does it give the colour coding at the end? No, it doesn't. That's interesting. But yeah, the reason it always looks a mess is because it's all stacked on top of each other. If you were only to see the airspace, there's a feature that would be really good if they could do it, to only show you the airspaces of the altitude you're at. So when you're in cruise, you'll know exactly or easily when your next handover will be. So did we say we had I brought up the mobile? Yeah, here it is. Mopil, sorry. So I'm just looking at this. So we need to be down to flight level 260 at Mopil. So below flight level 260. So if we go and have a look at that, this is one of the things that Little Nav Map's quite good at. So if you look on here, we've got Mopil is there, look, below 26,000 feet. But it always fascinates me the way this works. If the number is below the line, that means below. If the number is below the line, it means below. If the number's got two lines, it means at. If the number is above the line, it means above. So we've got any speeds involved as well. So yeah, max 300, max... Depends which one you're doing. We're doing Mopil 9 Echo, aren't we? So max 300 knots. And then flight level 140 at Gitan. And we're not reducing speed yet, but then when we come into the approach, so I'm going to go and get the ILS chart as well. So we're coming in from this direction. So we go to charts for, we want the approach charts, ILS 402. So we'll pin it, so we've got access to it. And then we get to see that. So we'll have vectors on the last bit. I'm pretty sure of it. The reason I say that is when you look at the routing, although this one does come all the way around, doesn't it? But we'll still switch over to ILS at the last moment. It'll be fine. Yeah, so our star brings us all the way down here, but then there's a gap. But again, you get a rendering difference here. Look, the way that Navigraph renders it versus the way that Little Nav Map renders it. So Little Nav Map's kind of invented. It's got this manual step here, look. So this is us flying to get us onto there, but you'd expect to get vectors, really. Let's see what it says in the flight plan. Oh, I think I cleared it out, didn't I? So if we go next page, there's vectors, yeah. And then that's the entry into the runway, look. So that last bit of route, we're expecting vectors. So we go into heading select mode, basically. So we've got about 60 miles before Mopil. I don't think we're anywhere near the handover yet. Nope, I've got just enough time to go grab a coffee, so I'll go do that. Back in a moment. Oh, so sorry, Special Air Mission Aviation is saying, can I ask what map view setting you use on Little Nav Map? I use... So at the moment we've got the vectors, the sectors turned on. If I turn it off, the map I've got is an aftermarket one. You can download it off the internet. It's Google Maps Terrain View. You can get a free API key to use Mapbox as well, which is very good as well. So if you do Mapbox outdoors and wait for it to load, it's quite good. so it does vector maps, so it takes a while to redraw. He says famous last words. There it goes. So Mapbox is quite good, but Google Maps is good. I think out of the box it uses OpenStreetMap, doesn't it, in Little Nav Map? But I think Google Terrain is a little bit nicer to look at and is very fast at drawing.
Brussels Control, good evening. This is Lufthansa
back in a moment.
70 Charlie Foxtrot at flight level 410, inbound Coxie.
Eurowings 461, contact Cologne Bon approach on 121.055.
Okay, I'm back. I have coffee. Where are we in terms of the border? We're not near there yet, are we? Let's turn the sectors back on. So we can see it here, look, we'll be crossing into French airspace in a few minutes. And we go past Delon. Having said that, we need to start descending, don't we? 260, wasn't it? Below. Brussels Control, Virtual 073, descending flight level 260. Is VNAV going to do it? Of course, VNAV might not do it until it has to. That's one of the curious things about VNAV. We could go and set the target.
Control, KLM 146, flight level 350.
KLM 146, Brussels Control, good afternoon.
At the star chart. So, if we put in 3,000 feet, it will figure it out. Because we know when we look at here, we need to be... actually, it hasn't... yeah, 3,000 feet. So if we just target 3,000, the VNAV should take care of it. Unless we get control telling us to descend to specific heights. So I'll just send on the data so you can see flight level 260 below. It's leaving it too late, isn't it? Why has it not done it? "10 miles away, doing nearly 300 knots. Maybe it will. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's just watch what happens. Because it needs to get below 260, and it's not going to do it, is it? Unless it just falls out of the air. Here comes the profile. Okay, maybe it is going to do it. Wallop. Whoa! Yeah, it's going to do it. Suddenly you're going to dive for the floor. So with 5 miles to go, yeah, it's fine. VNAV's scary, isn't it, when it does things like that? So you do need to keep an eye though on the profile, so you can see it here. I'm just going to check something while we're doing this. So I'm just double checking so I get the acronyms right. RNP is required navigation performance. Okay. ANP is actual navigation performance.
Virtual 073, contact Paris Control on 128.105.
Contacting Paris Control 128.105, virtual 073, good day. What's the name of the approach again? So the Mopil, which one are we actually doing? Mopil 9 Echo, a Mopi 9 Echo. Paris Control, virtual 073 with you, descending on the Mopi 9 Echo approach into Orly. Arrival, I should have said, into Orly.
Virtual 73, Paris Control, identified. Good afternoon.
So they're happy with us. Let's increase the range back out on this now we're a little bit happier with it. Let's have a look at the next constraint. So it should be at flight level 140.
Paris Control, Mike Oscar 738, flight level 230. Good evening.
So the other great thing about VNAV is it will take care of the speed restrictions on the way in. So we got until we get to Quebec, we're happy
Mike
to be at
Oscar
300 knots.
738, Paris Control, identified. Good evening.
think my trouble with the complicated airliners is I find everything interesting and then I get sidetracked. So quite often I'll be explaining something that's of interest to me to the channel and then miss out pieces of checklist and get behind the aeroplane, and that's when it gets dangerous actually, if you get behind the aeroplane. So a few moments ago when I was talking about keeping an eye on the required and actual navigation performance and the descent profile marker, you're really looking at the wind may have changed since.
Mike Oscar 738, Paris Control, cleared, Mopi 9er, Hotel, arrival into the Gaulle.
Yeah, so
whenever you'd like descent, flight level 090.
Just waiting for them to finish talking. While you're descending, depending on if the wind has changed,
descending, flight level 090, Mike Oscar 738, thank you.
Your aeroplane may not be able to make the descent rate on the flight plan without using spoilers because of the atmospheric conditions. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't catch on to, and they end up too high and too fast depending on the wind. So if you had a tailwind on the way in, you can commonly end up too high and too fast over the approach, because the aeroplane couldn't make it down. It usually warns you and says retard at the top left corner, or it needs help basically to slow down. So you just throw the spoilers out and help it out. Of course, the other reason that quite often you'll see aeroplanes descending on the spoilers is because they're a few minutes late. So they stay high and fast as long as they can, and then descend steep and save themselves a few minutes. Usually caused by passengers, at departure, where either the person that's late to the aeroplane or a bag has to be taken off because the person hasn't turned up who's the bag belongs to.
73, Paris Control, cleared, Mopi 9er, Echo arrival into Orly. Whenever you'd like descend, flight level 070.
Descending flight level 070 at our discretion on the Mopi 9 Echo arrival into Orly, virtual 073.
White Star 181, contact the Gaulle Tower on 118.655.
Contact the Gaulle Tower on 118.655, White Star 171.
Paris Control for Ryanair 99267, descending flight level 080, now at flight level 240.
Turn head tracking on for a bit, so we can have a look around. Centre of France is very flat, isn't it? It's quite crazy because the borders of the south and the east are covered in mountains. So, I'm being asked in the Livestream chat, good late evening, where are you going? We are going to Orly, Paris Orly, which I don't think I've ever flown into in the simulator. And certainly not in real life. I've never flown into Paris in real life. I've always got the train. So, because obviously we're in the UK, we can get the Eurostar really quickly and quite cheaply. And when you factor in how long it takes to go through an airport these days, with having to get there 2 hours early and all the rest of it, it actually ends up probably similar time to jump on the train. Because the Eurostar does over 200 miles an hour. Or it does on the modernised sections of track. And away from built-up areas.
Virtual 073, contact Orly, approach on 123.875.
Contacting Orly approach 123.875, virtual 073. Good day. Orly approach, virtual 073, with you descending on the Mopi 9 Echo Star. I My memory is shocking. I think part of it is because I'm always flying different aeroplanes and different routes.
Virtual 73, Orly approach identified. Good afternoon. Expect the ILS runway 2 approach into Orly.
Expecting the ILS 2 approach into Orly, Virtual 073. So you can see on the constraints we're aiming for flight level 110 into Quebec. It hasn't pulled the speed back yet. When it does, we might help it with the spoilers. So let's have a look at that on the FMC and see when we need the speed down. It says here at Quebec, so oh yes, just done it, look. So we'll throw the spoilers out to help the deceleration. And this is a classic of where you get behind the flight plan if you don't help the aeroplane do things like this. Depending on the
next frequency, Airway 3635.
We have a tailwind, which is the worst case scenario.
Airway 3635. Airway 3635 on the ILS 25. Airway 3635. Contact Orly Tower on 120.5.
It's complaining about the speed brake being out for an extended period of time. That's not a problem. So we're down to the target airspeed and now we're descending on for the next part of the route. I'm not sure what's going on with this spurious vector. Is that the secondary airfield? No, it isn't. Looks like there's a bit of a rendering error going on here. We won't worry too much about it. Okay, so we're on VNAV, we're on LNAV, so LNAV is lateral navigation, VNAV is obviously vertical navigation. The plane is flying itself, we're just minding it. We have an 18 knot tailwind, which isn't horrendous. It's fairly clear as well, isn't it, out there? There's hardly any cloud around. So in terms of the simulated weather outside, obviously it's dark at the moment in France. So I left the weather as live, but just changed the time so you get to see something out the window. I was tempted to do it as a night flight, but I may do that in the week and do another flight and do it as a, specifically as a night flight. I know several people have been asking me to do some demonstrations of using the ILS, so I may well do that and do some circuits somewhere. I'll choose an airfield, maybe one of the new IndyBuilds airports. They've just made a new version of JFK, haven't they? So I may go get a copy of that, and maybe we do invent some sort of circuit around JFK to do several ILS approaches, just to explain, the thinking about putting the aeroplane in the right place in the sky, switching over to the appropriate radio systems and so on and so forth. It's not difficult. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the charts, because it's not obvious looking on here what the airplane is doing. So max 250 knots along here, and there are no further altitude targets on this route, so you're basically looking to get to 3,000 feet by the time you're on approach. So VNAV will be smoothing that out for us. But remember, we have vectors. That's why we're getting the spurious lines. That's the vector lines. So yeah, you can see where the
Transavia 1808, contact Paris Control on 125.08.
Contact Paris Control 125.08.
So by the time we leave P0621, we'll be flying out across here on vectors. So we'll be going to
1123, climb flight level 230.
That wasn't us, was it? Can't have been because we're on the descent. No, it wasn't for us, it was for somebody else. So you can see it's trying to get to 3,000 feet around the time we get down towards the approach, which is perfect for us. We're down below 10,000 feet now, by the way, so landing lights should go on. Remember our conversation earlier about lights, that, you know, it's not the law. It's more about standard operating procedures of the airlines. While we have a moment, we can go and admire the aeroplane from outside. It's huge, isn't it? Am I using a 5090 to play this? No, I have a 4090. I looked at the stats when the 5090s came out, and I'd only bought this machine about 6 months before, and I decided I'm going to skip the 5 series completely, and I'll wait until the next generation of graphics cards comes out, because the step up specifically for Flight Simulator from the 4090 to the 5090 isn't great. It's a huge chunk of money for a negligible improvement in performance. And I'm going to put owl watches on a warning. I'm removing the comment you wrote. We will have no mention of ethnicity or race or anything in the live stream. And if you do and you continue, I will ban you immediately.
Air France 47 Quebec Papa, cleared ILS, runway 8 height.
I'm over on the subject, no politics.
7 Quebec Papa, contact the Gaulle Tower on 118.655.
The Gaulle Tower 118.655, Air France 47 Quebec Papa, merci, au revoir.
The Gaulle approach, November 806 Bravo, descending flight level 050.
So should we go and check the radio frequencies for the ILS while we are trundling around this corner? So we want 110.3 and 17 degrees on the course. So if we go and take a look at the radio navigation page, 110.3 and 17 degrees. It's already got it, look. Unable cruise altitude, that's fine. Get rid of that. controls earlier on. So let's go and reduce the range on the navigation display. Now we're getting a bit closer. So if you remember, we're expecting to get vectors as soon as we get past, or as soon as we get near P0621. So there's a question on the live stream: how realistic is this game compared to actually flying? Very, very, very realistic. But those last few % of making it realistic are why the commercial simulators cost millions and millions. But for a home simulator, it's ridiculously good. The number of commercial pilots that have said that, you know, that some of the study level aircraft and their behaviour is just uncanny. It's not perfect, but then that's that small amount, you know, it's the uncanny valley where closing up those last few % takes 95% of the effort. Do I fly in real life? No, I don't. But I know lots of people who do. I'm probably one of the few YouTube channels that covers all this stuff, and I don't actually have a pilot's license, never flown. Actually no, that's a lie, I have flown an aeroplane in the dim and distant past. I've taken the controls and flown for quite some way, and they they were amazed actually. So it just proves the thing that aeroplanes are not difficult to fly. And if you learn in a simulator, it depends, actually I guess it depends on the person. If you can switch off your senses and concentrate on the instruments, then you can do IFR. And I figured out I could pretty much instantaneously in the real thing, because I was looking more at the instruments than outside, which was a failing because it was a lovely clear day and I wasn't scanning for aeroplanes around. I was just concentrating on doing, you know, holding a course, a speed, an altitude, and flying the aeroplane accurately, which I was happily able to do. Okay, so we need to change the barometric pressure. We've completely forgotten to do that. We're down through 6,000 feet, or we're about to come down through 6,000 feet. What's the transition altitude in this part of the world? 5,000 feet. Okay, we're not quite there yet. But we do need to find out.
Airplanes 1123, proceed direct, CF02, clear for the ILS runway 2 approach.
Just going to get the weather quickly. 1020 or 30.12. 30.1. There we go. So now our barometric pressure is correct, and hopefully we'll get some vectors in a few moments. So the speed is coming off. We need to be mindful of the flap speeds, so we can go to flaps 5 at 235 knots, which we're almost at already. Can you look behind you at the passenger area? Yes, you can. But I think it might be locked at the moment. But yeah, you can see it's all in there. You can go wandering down the cabin. Should we leave the door open during landing? Okay, so we need to start thinking about vectors, because as you can see, the flight plan does not take us over to the approach. So once we've straightened up, we're going to bring the direction round to the direction the aeroplane is actually going, so 271 degrees. Put it on selected heading mode now instead of LNAV. We're still aiming to get to 3,000 feet, remember, so that's coming up. So let's go, we could, just for a bit of fun, let's turn VNAV off. We'll go to What's the easiest way of doing this? Actually, no, we'll leave ENAV on for the moment until we get to 3000. It should start descending again in a moment. Should we trigger the controller to give us vectors? So we're on Orly approach at the moment, aren't we? Orly approach, virtual 073 requesting vectors to get onto the localizer for runway 02.
Virtual 073, turn left, heading 240 vectors for the ILS runway 2 approach.
Turning left, heading 240, virtual 073. So they're turning us basically further away to give us more of a run-in. And they'll tell us to turn right in a few moments. Should put the head tracking on as well, so we can have a look around.
Virtual 073, turn right, heading 270.
Turn right, heading 270, virtual 073.
Transavia 1808, climb flight level 310.
Climb from level 310, Transavia 1808.
Head tracking for a moment just so we can concentrate on
Transavia
this.
1808, contact Paris Info on 126.1.
Contact Paris Info 126.1, Transavia 1808. Thank you, bye bye.
He'll square off the corner now and turn.
Virtual 073, proceed direct. CF02, descend altitude 3000 until established on the localizer cleared for the ILS runway 2 approach.
Direct to CF02 onto the ILS approach runway 02, virtual 073. So what we do then is, rather than going vectors now, we pull CF02 up to the top, which does a direct to, which the airplane will then do that on LNAV, and the plane will turn right all on its own. There we go. So that's the entrance into the approach. So then if we zoom in on the navigation display, we can see that a bit more accurately. Should we put the terrain view on? There's no hills around here, is there? There's nothing to see. Yeah, there's a few little bits of hill, but nothing that's going to get in our way. Let's turn it back off to clean the screen up. So I'm amazed the speed hasn't been wound down yet. So it's going to go for 170 knots at FF02. Okay, so that's the deceleration point essentially, and that's where we get the airplane configured and get the flaps down and the gear ready. So we're still 3,000 feet, remember. So we can see that on the chart actually. Has it marked them in? No, not on this one. If we look on this one, there's FP02. Has it got it how far away it is? 5.72, so about 8 miles out. So yeah, it'll be fine. So the speed's coming off now, so we're going to go and check the spoilers out to help the airplane slow down.
Virtual 073, contact Orly Tower on 120.5.
Contacting Orly Tower 120.5, virtual 073. Orly Tower, virtual 073, approaching for ILS landing runway 02.
Virtual 73, Orly Tower, wind 05 at 11. Runway 2, cleared to land.
Clear to land, runway 2, virtual 073. So let's go and bring the heading bug around to the direction the aeroplane's going. I've still got the air brakes out. I was helping the aeroplane slow down. So flaps can start to come down now. The gear can come down. Try a look from outside. The wings flexing. What else do we need to do? Auto brakes.
Soleil 40 Mike, Echo, welcome to Orly.
So here comes the runway.
Contact ground on 121.815.
You can see the runway directly in front of us.
Thank you, have a good day.
So let's go and start winding the flaps further out. So, looking at the little chart down here, we can go flaps 25 at 185 knots, flaps 30 at 170 knots. We're flaps 20 at the moment. About 7 miles out. And we've gone beyond the glide slope, where I've been not paying attention. So, because I only targeted 3,000 feet. So I'm going to turn off the autopilot. So we are in control and we're going to descend and throw the spoilers out, and we're going to chase the glide slope back down. And this is why it pays to be able to fly an aeroplane rather than just control the autopilot. Because you get distracted and something like this happens, but we're fine. So you can see here's the glide slope, we're just coming back towards it, there's no hurry. Should we go manual throttle as well to try it out? So we'll turn the caution there is just about the throttles. So I've pulled the throttles to manual now. Let's give the wings a waggle to prove it's me. So coming down onto the glide slope, we've slipped a little bit to one side. We've got a crosswind. Slight vector of the crosswind. We've got 20 knots in our face basically, but slightly pushing us to the left, so we're having to crab slightly right, but not much. Should we have a look at it while it's fully configured? I can't stay out here too long, I've got to fly it. And we'll go and put head tracking on as well. We've got the cautions come on. Checklist is incomplete. Yeah, we don't have to worry about that. Remember there was a landing checklist which we haven't done. This is why it pays to have two of you. So we're still on the glide slope. We're still on the centre line. Well, we can see we're on the centre line. So we're just managing speed. Full flaps, gear is down. It's pretty here, isn't it? That building is a bit high right on the approach, isn't it?
100. 50, 30, 20, 10.
French B77 uniform, welcome to Orly. Contact ground on 121.815.
121.815. French B77 uniform, thank you.
Contact departure en 123.875 Air France 1123.
they already talk to us?
Virtual 073, welcome to Orly. Contact ground on 121.815.
Contacting ground 121.815, virtual 073. So we're going to find out which way we're going to pull off the runway first though. So let's go and pull up the airport chart for Orly. We're going left on 23 by the look of it. Here. Orly ground, virtual 073, exiting a runway, was it 2? Yeah, exiting runway 02, requesting taxi to parking.
Virtual 073, taxi to P42 via Whiskey 23, Whiskey 1, Lima 4, Whiskey 3. Good day.
Taxi P42 via Whiskey 23, Whiskey 1, Lima 4, Whiskey 3. Good day. Okay, so let's go and have a look and see what that actually means in terms of the chart. So we'll try and put this to one side. We'll just sit here on the holding point for a moment and get our bearings of where we are. So, Whiskey 23, Whiskey 1. So we turn left, basically. Then Lima 1. Sorry, Lima 4. So Lima 4 is right down this end. And then Whiskey 3 is going to be here somewhere. So go to the far end of the buildings on the right, basically. So go left immediately. Okay, I think we can follow that. Let's get the taxi light on then. Oh, I never turned it off. And we have to release the parking brake again, of course, because it's a Boeing. Have a look from outside now. So we can wind the flaps back in while we're taxiing back. Something else we can do on the way, in case we don't have ground power, is we could start the APU back up. The idea being by the time we get back, we'll have the APU available to cross to bus transfer over to it. So when we shut the engines down, we don't lose power to the aeroplane.
Orly ground, Alpine 135 Yankee, request IFR clearance to
So now we're carrying them along Whiskey to the end, basically.
Give me 1 second for that clearance.
Information Yankee is current, clear to Nice via Bulb 2 X-ray departure, then as filed, departure runway 25, initial climb 4000, squawk 6522.
Whoever left that there is about to regret it. It's about to get trundled over. Oh no, just missed it. Thought we were going to flatten out. Look, all the airplanes that are in. Oh my word. GA parking at Orly. I have no idea what the ghost cars are doing. Oh, it's the motorway, isn't it? It's a fault in the scenery. So how far along was it? Whiskey 4, wasn't it? Oh no, so Lima 4. And then over to Whiskey 3. Lima 4, Whiskey 3. So we kind of go around here, through there, and put ourselves on a gate. There's a building missing in the scenery, which has made it look hilarious. Oh, it's a shame when the sim does that. Yeah, there's a whole stack of buildings missing. Kind of breaks the immersion, doesn't it, when that happens? So, just to give us a building to go and park in, should we go over there? There's a space over there. So let's ignore their instruction and go further up the side of this building. Otherwise we end up parking next to a non-existent building. There we go, look, there's a nice big fat space for us to go and roll into. And then explain to the airport authorities why we didn't park where we were told to. Okay, so we're talking to ground, so we could. You don't necessarily have to request shutdown, but we can tell them we're on the blocks. Let's see what they come back with. Orly ground virtual 073 is on the blocks.
Virtual 073. Taxi to parking via Whiskey 23, Whiskey 1, Lima 4, Whiskey 3. Good day.
On an auto.
Air France 1123. Pushback and engine start approved. Face west.
So if you remember, we put the ADIRU
Air France 1123.
So it will take over
Ready
power generation automatically now.
4.
So we can turn the hydraulics off. Just trying to think what might be useful to have a look at playing with in the aeroplane now we've arrived. So if we go and look at ground operations and go to ground connections, we can set the chocks around the aeroplane, we can request ground power, and now we've got ground power connected to the aeroplane, we can go and select it in here, and then we can turn off the APU. Okay, so having done that, we can turn the beacon light off, by the way. Now the engines are not running. Turn the nav lights off. Turn the taxi light off. So let's have a look from this view of overhead. Go and turn the window heats off. Go and disarm the emergency lights. Go and turn off the power to the various ancillary systems. And turn off ADIRU. That's the inertial reference unit. Everything else is auto on the 77, I think, so it's not anything we need to interact with. Oh, passenger oxygen. Oh, it was already off. Okay. Okay, we've just messed that up. We'll leave that alone then. All I was going to do though is come in here and say, can we have a jetway connection? Does it understand passenger entry method? Please? Pretty please? Ground power. We've got ground power. Why can't we have the jetway? Okay, let's go in stairs instead then. So if we go to ground service vehicles and say we want stairs on one left and we want one left open. And we've got our stairs have driven up. There's a whole stack of things you can do with this. So if we go ground service vehicles, we can go fuel truck request, galley request, maintenance van request, portable water, lavatories, forward cargo, cabin cleaning, aft galley, and suddenly we have a very busy aeroplane. It's great, isn't it? See people walking past with all of the food for the next flight and taking off the empty trays. You can see the doors opening up over here as well for the baggage, and it's lifting up on its hydraulics. It's very cool. So just reading the live stream comments, GSX, yeah, it looks great. So you can have the passengers walking off the plane at this point and going off across towards the terminal. It requires a lot more configuration though. I've never delved into GSX yet. I may look at it at some point. Some of my friends have got it, and it does look wonderful when they show it on the screen. We always have a good laugh watching the passengers walking past, judging them as they walk past. Oh dear. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed that this evening. If we go and turn the batteries off, we'll go cold and dark, won't we? So let's go and get rid of the external power and turn the batteries off. And obviously, I think the MCP stays on for a few seconds usually. It will die. There it goes. I think it's because it has its own capacitors. It's like a separate unit within the cockpit. Ground operations and ground connections, and release the ground power, and we're good to get out. So yeah, we had the conversation earlier about, oh, can you wander around even? Yeah, you can wander around. The airplane, it's all here, so we've got all the... You can go look outside, look, there's a ATR parked over there. In various screens, I don't think these screens work, which is a bit of a shame, but you've got first class and the mid station for the crew. We've got business class, and then we've got premium economy, and then we've got economy. And if we turn around, all the screens have got all the chairs have got the screens on. It's amazingly modelled, isn't it? I think the curtains might work, actually. I haven't tried clicking on them on the way by. And you carry on down through the aft of the aeroplane, and then you've got the service area down the back here with all of the heating systems to warm the food up for everybody. And somewhere around here, I think this doorway, it's not probably what it appears. I think... Or maybe that is a toilet, I can't remember. No, that's going to be the toilet, isn't it? Some of these lead to stairs that go above to the crew rest areas. I can't remember where they are on the different aeroplanes. Because these long-range planes have two crews on board typically, and two sets of pilots. It might be that door goes, you know, there's a set of steep stairs or a ladder. And then above here, because if you think about it, I don't know if we can, yeah, we can't get through the wall. There's a lot of room above here. So there's actually some beds up there. I guess that's the next thing to get modelled in the sim, isn't it? Is the crew compartment. Because the pilots have it as well on the long-range aeroplanes. Obviously, because they have sleeping arrangements as well. It's probably that door there will be the seats up to above. So if you look outside, you can see, look, above the cabin, there's a lot of space still up there, which is where those sleeping areas are for the crew. It's a big old aeroplane, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. That was good fun. So obviously we got a bit sidetracked at the start looking at the flight planning and looking at the disparities, and then the weather changed and we had to reprogram the SID and it all got a bit squirrely, but it was all fine. Took it all in our stride and got on with it. Didn't panic. And then on the approach went manual just for the last little bit just to see how it handles really. I can never understand people.
Air France 11 to agree with pushback and engine start.
Let's go and get rid of
Air France
SayIntentions
1123, pushback and engine start.
So I've put a link to SayIntentions in the notes of the video as well. If you are interested in it,
stand 131 ready for push and start.
If you go and click the link for SayIntentions, I get a slight kickback, but the real story is you get 24 hours for free of SayIntentions when you first sign up. So if you were on the fence about trying it out, you can try it for free for a day. Just, you know, set a day aside before you go and sign up and go and play with it. It is great fun. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that today. See you again soon.